Hello, welcome everybody, welcome to the channel. It's Excoundrel here, and I have a very special announcement for today's tier list video. You may wonder why it's a little bit longer than a lot of the other tier lists. Well,
we have a special guest here coming right in for the tier list. We have Snitch from Tribe Gaming, one of the best mid laners on the European server, maybe one of the best mid laners in Wild Rift, and he'll be joining us today for this tier list.
I need to use this mixer at some point in this video, so that's my use of the mixer. But yes, we've got Snitch joining us for the tier list today. He'll be talking extensively with me about the Baron and the mid lane tier lists. So when we talk about Baron lane, when we talk about mid lane, you'll notice that those sections are a lot longer. It's because Snitch has joined me for a discussion. I really do want you guys to go and support this guy's stream and also his YouTube channel. His YouTube channel is new. He posts a lot of challenger level highlights on that channel, mostly from mid lane, but he kind of posts whatever he plays and has some good games on stream. He also streams pretty much daily over on twitch.tv/Snitch Hots, I think. But all the links will be found in the description below that you can go and check out. I've also changed the way that I do the tier lists slightly. I've taken inspiration from Rush. If you guys know Rush, he does Korean Wild Rift tier lists. I've taken inspiration from Rush, and I've done something similar. You'll see that there are a couple of new highlights. If something is highlighted in red with a little border around the icon, it means that that champion is especially strong when played by a one-trick or someone who's got a lot of mastery with it. If it's highlighted with green, it usually means that this pick is good in almost any game. And if it's highlighted in blue, it means I'm not sure, but this champion could be sleeper OP. Like, we could see it get much better throughout the course of this patch. If you like the content, feel free to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And also thanks to G2A for sponsoring the channel. There is a link also to something called G2A Academy, which is where they are aiming to get into schools and help teach teachers about the positives of gaming and education. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this tier list. It's a little bit longer than usual, but there is a bit more of a podcast discussion when it comes to the Baron lane and the mid lane, which I hope you enjoy. I have cut some of it out, so if it sounds like I've cut some of the discussion, it's because me and Snitch talked for maybe over 40 minutes, and I didn't want to make this video 40 minutes, but I've tried to keep in as much of it as possible, and hopefully it is informative and entertaining. I've also changed the layout of the tier list, and now you'll see that there are some champions that slot between tiers. So I've got like S/A and A/B, and again, going from left to right, left is the strongest, right is the weakest in that respective tier. Hopefully it's legible. Leave your feedback about the new style of tier list and whether you like me having the guests on for these tier lists. And hopefully you find that it's accurate and it helps you climb in solo queue. I'll see you soon. All right, I'm actually going to ask you about Malphite again because the way you described Malphite is really funny. And obviously, we've been talking a little bit about it. And by the way, guys, me and Snitch may move some champions around during this, but I'll always post the final version of it with the video so you can see the final version. So, yeah, Malphite we kind of consider just like for solo queue, especially, just like one of the best Baron laners. And you kind of put it really nicely, Snitch. I'd love to hear how you said why Malphite was the best Baron laner again.
Yeah, I mean, like, so you compare, like, Malphite and Camille. It's like, if you're Camille, you're, like, going to the Baron lane, you're like, oh, my early game's a little bit weak, I have to take some creative trades to, like, get ahead, get some items online. Oh, 2-3 items, now I can split push, create some map pressure, you know, use my advantage. And then it's Malphite, it's like, you walk up to the team fight, you slam your face into the R button, and then you won the team fight. And it's like, weighing, like, the investment you have to put in to get reward out of the champion. I think Malphite is, like, 10 times easier to play, with, like, similar benefit.
Yeah, and also in lane, I always find that Malphite is so easy to play the laning phase. You just slap your first ability, and then if, like, Camille jumps on you, you just ground slam, and she has, like, low attack speed. Fiora jumps you, you just ground slam, and they have low attack speed, and then you just walk away like nothing ever happened. And you get a passive shield that regenerates every, what, 7 or 8 seconds? So, yeah,
it's
like
8 seconds, I think.
8 seconds,
I had to teach Leon that one, so I remember it vividly, because Leon had no idea what the the reset time was.
And it just allows you to take free trades. Now, I think Gragas is super strong because he has a load of good matchups. Like, Gragas is one of the few people who can really force Malphite out of lane easily, I think. And I just think Gragas is like a super strong pick right now. I see him quite a lot in solo queue. I think he's better Baron lane than mid lane, personally. Snitch, you're the mid lane main. What do you feel? What do you feel about Gragas?
Yeah, I guess I haven't liked Gragas mid for a while. I think he's definitely still very playable in Baron lane. It's weird. I don't really know why he feels like he got worse. I mean, I think it's just a lot of, you know, slow nerfs over time, Leandry nerf, and his numbers got hit a bit, and like maybe some other items got stronger, maybe the jungle meta changed. I don't know. It just feels like it's a lot harder for him to like. I think people just got better at lane against Gragas in general as well. Like stuff like Camille is getting out of lane against him a lot more consistently, whereas before that matchup felt like it was like 80-20. Now it feels like it's a lot closer to like 50-50 than it used to be. People just getting much better at Camille. I definitely think, he has loads of utility, loads of burst if he's ahead. Super good engage with Flash E. Could definitely like win a game off like a Flash E explosive cast, that could instantly win in a team fight and just snowball a game. But I don't know, it just feels like something changed about him over time. I guess, people just getting better at dealing with it. But it just doesn't feel as impactful as it used to be, especially in mid lane.
Yeah, I think he's super strong Baron lane just because he has a lot of good matchups still. Like I think he beats Darius relatively comfortably, right? And Darius is like a bit of a solo queue monster. I'm gonna have
to embarrass you here in front of all of your viewers. You know, all of your subscribers are about to be shocked and appalled that you forgot to put Akali in this iteration.
Oh my god!
Oh
my god! Well, I knew I forgot something.
If you guys want to unsubscribe to Excoundrel now and subscribe to my channel, I would never forget Akali if I did a tier list.
Do go and subscribe to Snitch, by the way, guys. He has got a YouTube channel. You generally post like really cool highlights from your stream, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to do a video every day right now. Just doing it's just a recycled game that I played on stream, trying to get the good ones.
Okay, I put Akali in. I think she's really good. I think she's maybe better than Fiora actually.
Yeah, I would say she sits between S and S plus.
Yeah, I think she's really strong.
Just a little bit higher. Yeah, it's just so many good matchups. Beats every melee laner. If she snowballs, the game feels so difficult because she just walks around one-shotting everybody. And when I say one-shotting everybody, I mean like 3 or 4 people at once sometimes, if she gets a solid, perfect execution, suddenly your entire team dies, and you're like, well.
I hate playing against her. I hate playing against Akali. It's the one Baron laner that I just literally cannot fathom playing against. I play pretty much every role because I just like to try and get a good feel of the game. And I hate Akali. I think you have to have you have to be really confident in your windows to abuse Akali, because if you're not, she'll crush you.
Yeah, it's that same idea of like champion mastery, right? It's like you're playing against Akali who has like 150 games and he knows his spacing perfectly, or they're spacing perfectly, and they're always playing around the max Q range to get the slow, and they're always playing with the shroud properly. Like it just feels so hard to like ever get a good trade, because especially because like compared to PC, I find Wild Rift Shroud is a little bit harder to punish on. It feels like she disappears from vision a little bit faster, which makes it much harder to trade back. Like even in like Camille against Akali, if she ever has Shroud down, it just feels impossible to hit it back. So you can't get your passive, you can't ever get like an even trade. You're just constantly getting like pushed back.
Yeah.
So it feels like every time she throws Shroud down, it's like, well, now I can't stand in the way for 7 seconds. I mean, my bad, I guess.
Yeah, Akali's insane. I think Akali's really good. Again, I'm not entirely sure on Pantheon. Pantheon's one of those picks that he seems to fall off like insanely hard in Wild Rift. He does always do this in PC version. He always fell off in late game, but it just feels like because Wild Rift is accelerated, obviously compared to PC in terms of gold gain, Pantheon seems to fall off 10 times harder. He has a much smaller window, but I think like he is good, and especially in competitive, I think there is going to be there will be play with him in competitive. I think he's more likely to be played support because of the way you can like coordinate tower dives. But I think he's again, I'm putting question marks around him. I'm not entirely sure. And again with Diana, I'm not 100% sure where Diana should sit right now. I think she's kind of like comfortably A. But I think if people start to figure out the best way to play her the way her ultimate is used properly, we might see her used a bit more. I do think she's probably better in mid lane though, because her roam potential is pretty good. And I think if you're putting a good roamer in Baron lane, you're often kind of limiting their potential. That's why I think like Pantheon and Diana might be slightly better played in mid, but I think other notables. I think Yasuo dropped a little bit. I think the Yasuo nerfs hit pretty hard. I think he definitely feels less strong than he was, especially. You've played a lot of Yasuo, like obviously in mid, but I moved him from S to kind of between A and S because I still think like a good Yasuo player can make him work, but he definitely feels pretty hard hit by those nerfs.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a mastery champ now. Like I think if you really don't know how to play it at a absolute almost perfect level, especially against some of these matchups like Akali, Darius, Fiora, if you don't play these matchups exactly as you need to, you just die once, and then it just, as soon as you're behind, the champ is like super hard to play now, I think. So I think you really need to have a high level of skill on Yasuo, especially to put him off in Baron lane. Like I think in mid lane he can get more value out of Windwall generally, so he has more ways to kind of like play against people and maybe kind of squeeze his way through the lane phase. But I think in Baron lane it's exceptionally hard now to lane against the likes of like Camille and Fiora, because you can't even like consistently rely on your dash with the slower speed to kind of like get you out of these kind of weird trades, trying to force these
yeah.
kind of like odd trades to try and get a lead. I think it'd be much harder than before.
Agreed. And then I think the only other thing I wanted to mention is I actually think Singed could be kind of sleeper. I'm kind of seeing a lot of Singed in solo queue recently, and I feel like he's maybe underrated because people are still trying to figure out how to proxy properly and like where best to go with him and build. I think Singed could be potentially a little sleeper, little bit.
Yeah, I would disagree, actually. I've seen a fair bit more Singed recently. I think he is, again, one of those champs where it's like, if you don't expect his damage output, he kind of catches you off guard. Like, his level 2 is actually, like, dangerously strong. He's, like, one of the strongest level 2s in Baron Lane. And I think it's just kind of one of those things people don't really know until, like, you face it and you get first spotted instantly.
Yeah.
I had a great game with Clue recently where he was playing Akali against Singed. Clue's support substitute for Tribe, and he didn't really know what to expect, and he like died level 2. And then his whole game was like ruined instantly, and he was like messaging me afterwards about how broken Singed is. So yeah, it probably is a little bit sleeper.
It's
I think also Jarvan is worth mentioning.
Yeah, Jarvan. Okay, what did we say about Jarvan? I know that I prefer him in jungle personally, but I know that he is quite strong in Baron Lane.
Yeah, he's definitely been seeing a lot more places the buffs. I think his Dragon Strike is very, very, I think that's what it's called, right? The stab.
Yes.
It's very annoying to play against in Baron Lane. The range is very long and it's quite wide as well. He's also very, very safe, very hard to gank. Between his base stats, his shield, and his consistent escape combo, he's very hard to gank, and they're very good to gank for. So it's kind of like a very safe pick that has really good teamfight utility, almost like a pseudo Malphite, almost that kind of level of like winning a team fight, especially against certain champs, like Olaf, stuff that can't escape, a lot of mages. Yasuo, you put the cage on these guys and they can end up just getting stuck in the fight and just die, And in some cases, Cataclysm ends up being more useful than Malphite ult, but I think those cases are very, very rare because, Malphite ult is pretty cracked.
Pretty
but
good.
I do think he's he has some like decent matchups. He has pretty strong poke. It's hard to force him out of lane, so I think he's a pretty safe, consistent option.
Couple of other one tricks I just want to mention. Like, if you go against a Teemo one trick, that can be pretty scary. They kind of know exactly how much damage to do with their poison. Can be a bit annoying. I think Teemo in general is rather useless, but I've seen some solo queue Teemos just run over the Baron lane and start one-shotting the AD carry in team fights.
Yeah, he's actually really annoying when he's ahead. He just rolls up invisible, and you kind of don't think about it, especially for me. I guess for PC, you don't really think about that kind of thing, but he just appears next to you, and you're like, is this Twitch? Or
Yeah,
it's actually just Teemo one-shotting you.
Oh my god. And of course, even though I used to say that Tryndamere was D tier, Mozilla has shown that you can play Nash's Tooth first item Tryndamere and actually get some wins with it. So I don't want to put Tryndamere too far in the garbage, but he's kind of garbage. Okay, yeah. I'm obviously doing some bits of this by myself because, as I said before, Snitch. If me and Snitch talked through this whole thing, it would have been like an hour and a half long of a tier list, and I don't know how good that would have been. So let's get into the jungle. Okay, so starting off with S+ tier, honestly, just Lee Sin right now is super strong. I talked to a lot of people. I originally thought Shyvana was S+, but talking to a lot of competitive junglers and junglers in general, Lee Sin just appears to have gravitated back towards the top of the meta in classic Lee Sin style. It's very difficult to contest him. He's got super early invade. He wins most early duels. Lee Sin, I think with the drop of Olaf, really Lee Sin has taken over. Shyvana is still good, by the way. Shyvana is still strong. She's strong in both competitive and in solo queue, but just doesn't have the same kind of agency that Lee Sin's got. And Lee Sin is pretty much good in all scenarios. There are very few matchups where Lee Sin is bad. I think that the bad matchups that Lee Sin have are things like Vi and Gragas, but apart from that, very few bad matchups. Evelynn is also super strong. If you've been playing solo queue at all right now, you've probably seen a lot of Evelynn, and I put her with the red ring of death, which is like one-trick Evelynns are really scary. They're very scary and can usually take over games very, very easily. Jarvan is a super strong jungler. He's also going to get the green ring of good in all cases. I think Jarvan is super good. Wukong is also a great jungler at S. And then obviously you have Olaf and Vi that are nearly at that level, but they're just between S and A. I've put Pantheon between S and A because I think in theory he should be really good, but whether that actually comes to fruition and we actually see Pantheon played outside of support, where I think I found most success with Pantheon support. But Pantheon jungle should be good. Like, he's got good gank potential, he's got good lockdown, his ultimate's very good for engaging on dragon fights, for instance. So I don't think Pantheon's bad. But obviously just I think again going to take some time for people to get used to him, so he may go up in the standings. Diana I've put a little bit further down. I don't think jungle's her place. I think she's weak. She's got a weak early clear. I think she's better off placed in mid or Baron lane, but she can be played jungle, which is why I've got her on this list. Like Gragas, much better played in one of the lanes. Honestly, much better played in Baron lane, I'd say, over any other lane. Graves just feels like he doesn't really do much. I don't really rate Graves massively in the jungle right now, and Mundo as well. Like, in theory, has some good compositions where he's good, but overall not great. Jax, very meh. Honestly, very, very meh. And Tryndamere, obviously, you know, we need to put Tryndamere in his place. And Yi is bad that he is down and off the tier list. If you play Yi, you're inting your game. Honestly, guys. If you're playing, I mean, I think it can work in lower elos, but yeah, Yi's just bad. He's so bad. But you know, Yi is probably designed to be bad because if he's good, he just runs over the game because he's an auto attack, like stat check type jungler and champion in general. So, you know, Yi deserves to be bad. So that's the jungle tier list. Again, this was vetted and kind of like talked through with Snitch. We just didn't have a conversation about it because, again, this video would have been 1,000 years long. But he is rejoining me for the mid lane, which is coming up next. So I think Oriana's... okay, so obviously I've got Snitch here, guys. He's clearly like one of the best mid laners on the server, so he's going to be able to vet this tier list for me. He might look at the Ziggs placement and think, what the bloody hell are you doing, Excoundrel?
No, it's fine. Honestly, I'm almost in agreement with you.
Almost, okay. let's go through the lanes. I think Oriana is just like gapped between the rest of them. I think Oriana is just the best mid laner. She's just so safe and has so many like good matchups, or rather, let's say she doesn't have many terrible matchups, and she still just she scales incredibly well. She's got great teamfight utility. The Liandry's nerf didn't really hit her whatsoever. I think the Conqueror nerf might hit her slightly, but she's one of the few mid laners that you can go electrocute and summon Aerion and still actually be okay with, right? So I think Oriana's still probably just the best mid laner in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I think she feels a little bit weaker with Conqueror nerfs for sure. It's definitely aimed at her kind of champion. But overall, I don't think she, like you say, she hasn't really been touched directly by anything. It's all been kind of indirect nerfs. But a lot of these indirect nerfs are also affecting her lane matchups. You know, it's not like she's the only one getting weaker. If the whole game is getting weaker, but she's still the same, she's still the strongest pick, right? So I think, yeah, she's definitely still the strongest mid laner in terms of like pure laning. The only matchup I think she could really struggle with is like Ziggs and maybe Seraphine. Katarina also a little bit of a hard one, actually, depending on how good the cat player is. But for the most part, I think all of her matchups come down to her ability as well. Like even Ziggs, even though he outranges her, she can still farm fine, and she can even get a good trades. You know, if she positions well around his bombs and like ends up placing the ball aggressively, like she can still find windows to win poke trades, even when she's slightly outranged by something like Ziggs. No, definitely. Corki's very, very close to us. Yeah, I don't think the gap is particularly far between them. It's just like in terms of like raw consistency, Oriana's never gonna do you wrong. I guess Corki is like, I mean, yeah, it's tough for me to find too many reasons that they're not super close together. You know, like Corki's very, very good, scales very well. Ever since the damage buffs, he's like super insane in mid lane. Yeah, I mean, I would almost say between S and S plus, to be honest, because package is such a dominant factor in most fights as well where he's involved in. You know, you could just fly through the entire enemy team. It's like even if you die, sometimes you just win the fight anyway because package is so relevant when you just fly through all of them. But yeah, I think he has good laning phase. He has good escape with Valkyrie, very consistent, very hard to pin him down in the team fight. Puts out so much DPS. Gatling gun is super strong against picks like Olaf, you know, picks like Jarvan, just any melee in general really just wants to stand there and fight you. You're just shredding all their resistances, and then your whole team just kills them instantly, you know? I mean, I would say, I think Cat and Yasuo are probably still between S and A. They're just a little bit stronger than the rest. I see an A. I think it's sad, but I do think A souls are up to A. I tried to play him recently, since the lives came came live, and you do definitely notice the damage difference. I think it's just really significant if it takes you like 3-4 empowered star hits more to kill somebody. That's so noticeable because like you have to, it's all about, ASO is so relevant on his positioning and he always has small windows, you know, during your Q stun, during your ultimate, or during the star stone, or during the ultimate, where you have to take them down with your DPS in that window, you know, because they're stuck, they can't move, and that's when his stars are like the most effective. And if you don't kill them during that window, suddenly they're walking into you, and then it's about like already awkward positioning, and you have that weird scenario, you have to like move the stars, you have to like walk the other way, and it's like if you don't kill them when you need to, he becomes a lot worse, I think. And I've definitely felt the damage change. I would honestly say Gragas is an A as well. I just think in mid lane he just doesn't feel like he does enough anymore. I think it is just people playing against it better a little bit. But for some reason, it's just I guess it's just like the slow nerfs, have just kind of kept him down.
And what do we think about Pantheon? Obviously, he's the new champion. Some people are playing him mid. What do we think about that?
But yeah, I think a lot of his matchups are very difficult. His wave clear isn't super good until he gets like a few items. Even though he has like the spear, it's like not super consistent. But overall, yeah, I mean, you have like the global ult. So in theory, he's kind of like an AD Twisted Fate, right? But he does fall off pretty hard if you don't get it going. So I think it is, a bit of a dangerous pick if you aren't comfortable getting a lead. Yeah,
I put Ziggs as a bit of a sleeper because I think like it's one of those things that competitive have caught on to, and solo queue is starting to. But I think, the Ziggs stock is going up. I think Ziggs stock is going up. I think Ziggs to the moon, everybody. Yeah, Ziggs to the moon, everybody. But I actually think the ultimate range increases are actually, it's like a 20% range increase in terms of radius. So like,
it's definitely not small. I'm not going to say it's nothing. It's definitely relevant to his team fighting. Overall, I think it's a pretty big buff in solo queue.
It's pretty good in dragon fights, right? Where you generally tend to have like a fiesta in dragon fight, and now you just like, you basically cover the entire pit and more. So it's pretty strong in that sense. But yeah, there's nothing else super relevant. I mean, Fizz is someone who I see a little bit, and he's one of those picks that I'm like, maybe versus a Fizz one trick who knows exactly like his levels of damage he can output and what point he wants to go all in. It can be difficult, but I feel like if you're trying to play an assassin mid, Fizz is just one of the worst options.
Yeah, I think it's one of the worst options. Yeah, definitely. I think Seraphine is interesting. I think it's so close to like kind of being good. Maybe it's just people still trying to find the right build, or maybe it's like just still trying to like practice a bit more.
Luden's kind of sucks in Wild Rift, so like the Luden's mythic on PC is like cracked, right? So like Seraphine mid is like good in that sense, but Luden's on Wild Rift is really underwhelming, and I think like there isn't many good first option like itemization options for Seraphine. And then she takes a little bit too long to get on. And plus, like, as I said, like, with Malphite being so powerful, Alistair being so strong in the meta, like, she can get hard CC'd really easily, and then she just dies.
Yeah, that's true. I think the other issue she has is her ult cooldown is so long. Like most mid laners, I think you have the opportunity to use your ult like at least once before a dragon. Right? If you like pull the trigger straight away on a play, you can normally get at least one ultimate off, and then your ultimate's coming up again around Drake. Drake timing. Based off when you got level 5. But with Seraphine, that's not even the case. If you ult before Drake once, you are probably not having your ult at the dragon. Yeah. And that is just terrible for Seraphine. That's like her entire kit basically is landing this big line ultimate and then rooting everybody through it, and then you instantly win a fight off that, right? That's how she wants to play a fight. But I mean, I think she does interest me. There's a Seraphine player called Trottles on EUS. He plays a bunch of Seraphine. He plays AD carry if he has to fill AD carry a lot of the time. And I do see him doing significant damage, and he has all the mastery of the champion, so he has all these fights that he wins kind of on his own just through knowing how to play it, and especially his usage of the passive with the notes. He ends up with these like massive range attacks that just seem to do like 700 damage, and I don't know how he does it, but I think when I see him play Seraphine, I think, this could work. It's not like her lane phase is bad in mid. If you can get on that kind of level, I think it's definitely playable. So I do think it has potential, but there's just a few glaring problems with it that kind of put me off.
Agreed. Okay, let's go on to the next one. I had to cut down the the discussion with Snitch on the mid lane quite massively. I know that you guys might have wanted to hear it, but I'll happily ask Snitch if he wants to do more discussions in depth in a later date. But obviously the video would have been like over 30 minutes if I kept going on this. So let's go on to the AD carry picks because they are slightly smaller and we can cover them more quickly. Okay, so right now I think Xayah is the best AD carry. I think it's closely followed by Kai'Sa. They both have the green ring of good in all cases, and I think that's one of the reasons why Xayah is super strong right now. There isn't a composition or a matchup that Xayah is bad into, and so she's just pretty much good all the time. So I think, her and Xayah are like definitely two of the best AD carries right now. I think Miss Fortune's still good. She just hasn't played that much. I think Jinx is fine. She's definitely not OP, but Jinx is fine. Especially when paired with a lot of things like Janna. Even Lulu still works well with her. I think Draven is strong, but he is one of those picks that, you have to have mastery with Draven to make him work, which is why he's got the red ring of scary one trick. Jhin, he's okay. He's not got great itemization right now, but he's definitely better than a lot of the AD carries that you have on your list. I think Ezreal is decent. I think Corki is definitely something that's going to be seen a lot more. Corki Leona is a very strong lane that's kind of been popular since the inception of the Corki and Leona package that we had in like Season 2, Season 3 League of Legends. So Corki's definitely a strong pairing, and I think we might see more of that in Southeast Asia with Leona. I think Varus is potentially sleeper. I've seen some Varuses in high elo. They play like the Blade of the Ruin King Nash's Tooth build, and it is seemingly very strong. Now, the problem that Varus has is his mobility is very low, and there isn't really many ways to escape. So there isn't, a great way to protect Varus. But I think Varus could be pretty strong. I think, we might see Varus played a little bit more over the course of this patch. I have seen more crop up in solo queue, and it does a lot of damage. Ashe, good pick, but damage is low. I don't think she's particularly strong. Vayne is between B and A. She's a scary one-trick pick for sure, but there are compositions that Vayne fits into, like against an Alistar where you can condemn the headbutt versus a heavy tank lineup. Vayne kind of shines in those scenarios. Tristana's still not great, honestly. Tristana's not very good right now. She feels really lackluster. Yasuo, I've seen some Yasuo AD carry, but it requires a lot of coordination, and I don't think it's particularly strong. And Twisted Fate is not a good AD carry. Please don't pick him. Play him in the mid lane if you're going to play him anywhere. But I do know some one-trick Twisted Fates on Europe. They really like to play Twisted Fate in every position, including AD carry. All right, we're going to go on to the support now. I'm sorry this is like a 28-minute tier list, but again, all timestamps in the description. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversations that I had with Snitch, and I hope they're insightful. I did cut them down pretty significantly, so they're not entirely the whole thing. The whole thing that we had was 40 minutes long, and then I had to do the other lanes as well. But if you enjoyed it, please feel free to go and throw Snitch all your love. He's a great streamer, great guy, really, really informative, and just a very good player. But we're going to go through the support list now before we end the video. Okay, so Alistar. Absolutely the best support in the meta right now, no questions asked. Even with the addition of Pantheon and Leona, he is almost certainly still the best support. I mean, his ultimate just gives him too much damage reduction. Janna close by as a second. She's a good counter to Ali. You see a lot of high elo one-trick Janna support players. She's very good for a reason. Braum and Rakan, I think, are S tier. I think Rakan is especially scary when you put in the hands of a Rakan specialist like a Rakan one-trick. Braum is pretty good because he's a solid pick into Alistar. He's also a great pick into Leona, who I think is nestled between A and S. I've played a lot of Leona. I thought she was going to be stronger. When I made that champion video, it was titled She's Going to Be OP. Played her, she's not that OP. She's good, don't get me wrong, but very single target focused, and her early game, she's still incredibly squishy. She doesn't get enough early game base stats and doesn't get enough stats from her second ability to make her as strong as Alistar, especially at first dragon fights. Nami is good. Definitely a bit of a sleeper pick. I think Pantheon support could be a sleeper pick because I've played a bit of it, and his ability to roam across the map and impact it with his ultimate is unparalleled. Like, you just jump in, you get a stun with your W or your second ability, and then just, set up kills. I think Pantheon's good. Lulu isn't bad, by the way. Lulu's still an okay pick. Don't worry about that. Sona, decent at A. Blitzcrank, decent into certain matchups, especially pretty good into Rakan. And, can be good if you can hit your hooks into enchanters. Also, he's very scary when played by a one-trick. Soraka, solid pick, but not amazing. I think that Lux is potentially a bit sleeper, mainly because people have started maxing her shield first, and that becomes pretty scary at first dragon fights. So maybe we see some Lux kind of crop up with the shield max first. I think it could be a thing. Ziggs support I've seen a lot of. And it is annoying. Trust me, Ziggs support is annoying. Obviously, its playstyle has been hit a little bit with the turret taking nerf to his second ability or his third ability, whatever it is. But overall, Ziggs still pretty strong. And I don't really like Malphite and Annie, but I'm including them anyway. I know that Snitch said that they've been playing Annie support into heavy melee compositions. So that could be something to think about if you're ever picking a support and you want to pick Annie, because you can always guarantee that you land a stun Tibbers. But that's the tier list. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. Please feel free to go and follow Snitch and let him know that you enjoyed the tier list. He basically helped me craft the majority of it. I put together the tier list, and I just asked him to vet it for me and check over some of the picks. We moved around a little bit. Most of it was pretty much okay, but I hope you enjoyed. I will see you very soon, guys, and thank you, and feel free to like, subscribe, and hit the bell.